Hello and welcome to my review of the Cerastus Knight Lancer for Warhammer the Horus Heresy from Games Workshop. One of these models will cost you £120 and consists of 208 plastic components. You heard me right, this is a plastic Cerastus Knight. Previously only available in resin from Forge World. Games Workshop's new web store has dissolved Forge World into it, so it's harder to kind of see which models are plastic and which are resin. As a rule of thumb, if you see like a miniature that is extremely high priced, like 200, 300, 400 pound or whatever, it's usually going to be Forge World and it's usually going to be resin. This model was released initially back in August, so a good over 3 months ago now it's taken to get this review to you, but you know, we have had a brand new edition. We've had Tyranids, we've had new Space Marines, and we've had even a box set of Horus Heresy. I did actually review the Forge World Cerastus Knight Lancer 2 years ago. I think it's been around, it was one of the first, if not the first ever Forge World Cerastus Knights, probably about 10 years ago, maybe a bit more, and it's been around for probably, I want to say 9 years, 8 or 9 years after the Questoris Knights, at least. It was released, and yeah, coming off the back of the Questoris Knights, the I say normal size Knights, and that chassis, these seemed out of proportion. These seemed long, lanky, you know, but that's just the type of knight they are. They're a much faster, I say slightly less armoured, but they're a much faster kind of knight. I released the unboxing of the Forge World Knight Lancer only last year, believe it or not, February of 2022. But I did actually pick it up the summer of 2020, I think. But anyway, back then, when I picked it up from Forge World, it was £195. So yes, with a discount, a 20% discount, using my Element Games affiliate link down below, you can save yourself 20%. You can probably pick it up for about 100. So that is kind of a Knight Lancer for half the price. And typically with Horus Heresy vehicles, you're not going to see that much difference in detail. With the characters and some of the dreadnoughts, especially like the Legion specific ones, hence one of the reasons why they continue to do those in resin, you're going to see a difference. But with vehicles like Knights, possibly even Titans, and tanks, there's not that much of a difference. Before we go into the format of this review, because I could talk forever and a day about these Knights and Titans and things, I just want to point out that although this is kind of half the price of a resin one, it is going to take you 3, possibly 4 times the amount of time to put it together. And before, Cerastus Knights were a nice gateway miniature if you didn't want to commit too much to a 400, 500, £1,000 Titan, but you wanted something from Forge World in resin to practice and to get, you know, practice with the super glue, practice with the material itself. These were a nice kit to do that. You can't really do that anymore. Well, I think you can still get the Atrapos, but that's quite a specific, you know, Cerastus size knight. But this is a side effect of the Horus Heresy models going into plastic, is that we are, you know, slowly running out of resin miniatures to kind of practice on. You know, we've lost the Contemptors, we've lost the Sicarans, which are the 2 models I would always recommend anybody new to resin pick up. We're going to get to the stage where there's either going to be character models, which are quite straightforward to put together, or the big Titans and the big kits, and nothing in between, or very little in between. And I do fear for the hobby, fear for the hobbyists, that just is, you know, building small one-off Space Marines or characters or even a Primarch, it's just not enough experience to go from that to a Warlord Titan. It's just not, or even, dare I say it, a Warhound or a Reaver or a Warbringer. But that being said, let's get into the format of this review. As always, I'll talk a bit about the Knight Lancer. We'll look at all its detail and things, how easy it was to build. Then I'll show you all of the spare parts, of which there's not that many, you know, for this 208 part kit. Then I'll go through some size comparisons with the Knight Castigator, which I own and have built, and with the other resin kits. They're pretty much the same size though. There's not really any size difference. I'll give you some comparisons with other Horus Heresy models, and right at the end of this video I'll go through all of the rules. So first things first, you know, don't let the pose sort of put you off. The arms are, if I can reach, the arms are loose. I haven't glued them at all. I'm probably going to go for like that pose anyway. It just striding forward, not with its shock lance, you know, fully deployed. I am going to glue it at one point, but it's nice that Games Workshop give you the option of having it, you know, any length. You can kind of do that. You can't really do that with the resin kit. It's either fully deployed or you know, not deployed. I think it looks a bit silly, a bit odd like that as well. Probably like halfway. So that's really cool that it gives you that option. Just a bit of just a blob of glue at the front, and the rear should hold that in place as well. You know, the arms, you can swap them out. I guess you could, you know, you can have, as you can see on the box, you can have the shield arm on the right hand side and the lance on the left if you so wish. I mean, my other Lancer, my third one, has a lance on the left arm. I'll show you both those in later on in the video. But yeah, I've left them unglued. I've left all the armor panels unglued, look, just for ease, because, you know, it's easier to spray the skeleton metal than you know, shade it with non-oil and so on. I've left the shoulder pads there just held on by white tack at the moment. The head moves, and that's a quite cool feature. It doesn't go up and down, but it just go left to right. So, you know, whatever pose you go in, there's a bit of customization there. The top, I've left the hatch glued, but I might keep this loose. I haven't yet decided. And then in here, you've got the pilot. And what's a really cool feature of this is, well, at the moment I've left it unglued, and again, you can too. I think I've left that unglued too. Yeah, I have, so that I can paint the front optics and the screen and things. You know, the actual Knight pilot himself, herself, whatever, the front helmet mirrors that particular Knight, so you get different. Oh, I can even take him out. That's quite cool. So yeah, I can take him out at the moment. Probably not going to be able to put him back in, but yeah. So the Knight, so the pilot's helm cover matches the Knight that the pilot is in. It's the same for the Castigator and the Acheron. All three of them have different helm faceplates, which is really cool and a nice attention to detail. I think it's great that Games Workshop have bundled this in, because they could have just left it blank. They could have just given you a throne, but they didn't do that. They actually modelled and gave you a pilot, which probably adds about 20 pounds or 30 pounds to the kit. It's a big chunk of the kit to get all those parts and the detail and things there. So that's quite cool and a nice feature, and I like that Games Workshop have done that. And it slots in very nicely. If we just look at the rest of the Knight, you get a number of different banners. I think you get 2 in this one, but I've gone for the thin one. It just matches the other Lancers, but for the Castigator I've gone for a different one. The shield is great, very similar to the resin one. Some people like it, some people don't. I've grown to like it more, and also, if you're really ambitious, you could get some clear plastic card and you know, paint it, you know, like a void shield type color, and then just insert it, you know, in those sort of 4 panels there. If you still wanted something physical rather than it just being like a frame. Some people like it, some people don't. I don't mind it, it's fine. The rear, you've got the power plant and all the servos and things to do with the hips. You know, this is the lance itself. Very, very cool. I like the articulation that you get with the arms. It's fantastic. You can pose it very well. The legs themselves, you can pose them to an extent. Just be careful of, like, you know, obviously be wary of the knees and how the knees go together. There are nubbins. There's like a plug and socket mechanism for the hips, but you can just cut that off and go for any pose, and you can swap the legs over. There's much more. The point I'm trying to make is there's way more posability in this Cerastus Knight than the Questoris one. Questoris one, you put the legs in one pose, that's it. You know, that's why all of my Questoris pretty much look the same. Even the Styrics and the Megara have the same leg pose. With these Cerastus Knights, you can go to town. You've got so many more poses and options for the kit, which is fantastic. So yeah, if you've held out and not bought any resin kits, then yeah, you're gonna get a good deal with some of the leg poses. The one thing it sort of falls down on is its actual, like, action poses and things. You know, bending of the knees and the legs and all those and all those features, which I'll show you on the resin model in a moment. So I'm quite happy with the Knight. It is a bit of a project. If you've built a Questoris Knight before, you know what to expect with one of these. They will take you longer than you think. You know, there's a lot of parts there, and there's a lot to clean up, especially if you go for one with a ranged weapon. Okay then, spare parts. Well, I've got these. You get two different shin armor plates. So you've got the Horus kind of eye there. So you can go for traitor or just, well, I say free blade or loyalist. So that's nice that they give you 2 options. You didn't get those in the resin kit. You get these extra plates, which I believe are mainly for the Acheron, I think. You get, of course, these different knee armor plates. I've gone for the square ones for this one. I'm not sure why. I probably should have gone for the square ones for the Castigator, but I think you know, for the Acheron I'll go for the square ones, and then I can go for the square banner as well. You also get a couple of these icons like you would in the Questoris Knights. I don't know if you can see those. These kind of top icons. That's a new one, I believe, for Heresy. So you can put them there instead of the Aquila if you wish. And then the aforementioned kind of Knight little extra helm pilot face plates that mirror the Knight that they're in. There's one of those. And then there's one of those. That's more of the Castigator one, I think. And then this is that square banner that you can put there instead, which I'm definitely going to go for the Acheron. So as you can see, not many spare parts at all with this kit. You're definitely going to get way more extra parts, spare parts. You're going to get way more spare parts with a normal Questoris Knight box set, if that's what you're after. These are very specific Knights. You've got one box for each of them. They share the legs and the hips and, you know, part of the torso and the top carapace, but you know, the arms are completely different, the heads are different, and the sort of shoulder pauldrons are different as well. So, size comparisons then. Let's first of all just compare it to a castigator. Now, I haven't got the armour panels on this one, but you get the idea. So that's the castigator at the moment. I haven't glued the sword and the bolt cannon yet, but I'm probably just going to have it walking forward similar. The one thing I really like on the castigator though is this chain of ammunition. I think it's fantastic, and I hope that they do this more often, but just miniaturize it, because it's such an incredible design. Whoever came up with this it's my favorite part of the kit, this one, and I'll probably say that in the review. But yeah, as you can see, the castigator, it forgoes the shield and the spear for the bolt cannon and the sword, and this massive ammunition pack here that it's carrying around. But in terms of size, it's the same height. Any of these Cerastus size knights are going to be the same height, depending on the pose. Speaking of which, here is one I made earlier. This is the Forge World one, the one in resin. Probably one of my proudest poses I've ever done for a Forge World kit. And as you can see, it looks smaller, more hunched than this one walking forward, but I think it works. Very proud of that pose. So yeah, it just gives you an idea that they are the same height. I mean, here is another castigator that I made earlier. God, we're running out of room here with all these knights and things. So yeah, it's going to look great with them all, really. That's only 4. This is the Atrapos, again same height for these ones, and then I guess that's the Atron as well, that's slightly fallen over because I need to repose that and yeah, put it in a better pose, a bit more of a stable pose. So there's still another Lancer, I guess, right here. So this has become a huge Cerastus Knight orgy, I guess. So there's 7 Cerastus Knights right there. Of course, I'll be picking up the Atron very soon, so that'll be 8. Still dwarfed by the number of Moiraxes and Armigers that I have, as well as the Questoris Knights. So yeah, a decent number of Cerastus. After the Atron, I will probably pick up another Lancer, just to have two pairs. I think they look great as a pair. Compared to a Questoris Knight, here's one I painted earlier, my first ever Questoris Knight, but then I added these Forge World shoulder pauldrons and the shield. I think it looks absolutely incredible. I'm really chuffed with this model. Very pleased with that. So that is Questoris Knight. That's where these Cerastus Knights measure up. And then if you're looking at the smallest knights, the Armigers, here is an Armiger, just to give you an idea of you know, how much taller they are compared to those. That's it compared to a Warhound Titan. So not a huge difference in height, but definitely, you know, in size, width and things. And then this is where it stands up next to a Warlord Titan. So a thigh height, possibly. I mean, if they were against some traitor Warlord Titans and they just managed to get in close and use those lances, they could probably be attacking all the servos and things in the knees. That would be a good point round the back, jab those servos in. But obviously, you know, the Warlord has point defense weapons. It's not going to be by itself. There's going to be a whole army of Secutarian Titan Guard and things surrounding it, which also have you know, shields and lances themselves, like this one, for instance. So, you know, it's not going to be a walk in the park, even for, you know, 3 or 4 Knight Lancers, but I just wanted to show you the size next to a Battle Titan. Okay, final size comparison that I always like to make is just going to be with my usual free Warhammer 40,000 minis. So we have a normal Legacy Space Marine, a Sly Marbo, and a Primaris. So if you're after one of these to go with your Primaris for like a 40k army or something, that gives you that gives you an impression of where it's going to measure up. It's going to be the centerpiece of your army. It's going to be one of the tallest models of your army, unless you've got an Asterius, unless you've got a Castus size knight like a Porphyrion, or Warhound or bigger. This will be the biggest model in your collection. I mean, compared to a Redemptor Dreadnought, which is one of the largest dreadnoughts you can get, that's where that measures up. So even a Redemptor Dreadnought it's just knee height, so not even anywhere near the hips or the chest or the top. So yeah, it's going to be one of your tallest, largest minis. Okay, so this is my part of the review where I will go through all of the rules for this Cerastus Knight Lancer. You'll find its rules for Horus Heresy in the Liber Mechanicum Forces of the Omnissiah Army book. It does count as a Lord of War, and its points cost is 400. Its movement speed is 14 inches, weapon skill is 4, ballistic skill is 4, strength of 9, armour front is 13, side and rear are both 12, initiative 4, attacks 4, hull points 7. The unit type is a vehicle knight, and the war gear is an arm mounted shock lance and an iron gauntlet shield. Special rules, flank speed. How does it compare to the other Cerastus sized knights? Well, it's exactly the same stat line as all of them. They all have the same movement speed, same strength, same armor, hull points, attacks, you name it. They all have those stat lines. So it's really easy when you've got a group of them, I guess, because they all share those stats. What they don't share is, of course, their weapons. Each of them have their own specific weapons. The arm-mounted shock lance is a melee weapon and also a ranged weapon. You have to look for it twice. It doesn't specify in the war gear, which is a bit of a shame. Because if you just thought it was a melee weapon and you looked under melee weapons and you saw, shock lance in brackets melee, the brackets, usually when something's in brackets afterwards, it means it probably has a range profile as well, or a different profile. So it has both. We'll talk about the melee profile first of all. So of course it's a melee weapon. It's a strength of a 10, AP 2, reach in brackets 1, Exoshock 5+. So Exoshock 5+ is going to be great against Mechanicum armies and other vehicles and things. For its ranged profile, it's 18-inch range, strength 7, AP 3, heavy 6, concussive in brackets 2. So, it's got an effective range there of 32 inches. So don't rule this vehicle out for range. 14 inches is a fair distance for them to cover quickly, and the fact that they've got 6 shots with that lance means that could well wipe out a heavy support squad or a special weapon squad, especially with the high strength and the great AP -3. Where it falls down is, of course, its number of attacks. It's only got 4 attacks, so you're only going to be pumping in 4 attacks into another knight or a titan or a unit. So depending on your enemy, it might be better to fire off the 6 shots rather than only the 4 shots in melee. Of course, you are getting that better strength 10 and the AP 2, so it's going to be great going into some Terminators and things and poking them to death, I guess. The Iron Gauntlet Shield isn't as good as it used to be, I don't think. It just gives it a 5+ invulnerable save against shooting attacks against its front and side, and 5+ against or melee attacks. I think it used to be 5+ against shooting and 4+ against melee. I would have preferred it to go back to that. I think that makes sense. It's a big old shield. You know, 5+ isn't the best, but to give a knight an invulnerable save is still very nice. And then if you also want to look at the special rules, it's got this flank speed. It may increase its movement distance by 4 inches in the movement phase, but if it does so, it may not make any shooting attacks. It can still charge in the assault phase. So again, it's whether you want those extra 4 inches. So it could move 18 inches and assault, which is great. You know, so it's whether you want to get these lancers in close combat or any of the Cerastus knights. Really, they've all got flank speed. Why would you take it over the Castigator and Acheron, the two other knights that are there? The two other Cerastus knights that are available in plastic. Castigator, for instance, it's the same movement speed, but it's armed with that 36-inch range Castigator bolt cannon. The usefulness of that ranged weapon is very specific because it is only AP4, but you do get 18 shots. So it's whether you want to pump 18 shots into anything really, and it does have the pinning and shell shock rules. But I think it's better for softening up targets, or even Mechanicum or militia equivalent. The Tempest Warblade, very interesting. It's the same strength as the Lance, but it does have the Deflagrate and Tempest rule. The Tempest rule, you get a single special. Instead of making a melee attack, you can make one special attack, initiative 2, but it automatically hits against each model in contact with the base. So you know, you're forgoing those 4 attacks for however many models you can get it in range with. So again, that's a purely horde knight. Although, you know, the strength 10 is nice against other knights, there's more survivability with the Lancer with the shield. In terms of the Acheron, it does have that twin-linked heavy bolter in its Reaper Chain Fist. And the Reaper Chain Fist itself is a strength 10 AP2, and it has armor bane, so that's going to be great against cutting open tanks. But again, that's more focused against hordes and lesser armed units, especially with that flame cannon, which is a strength 7, which is a Hellstorm template, so it's a large flamer template pretty much, but it is only AP4 and it's ordnance 1 and shred. So again, you know, that's much more short range, and the AP is only 4. The one thing this knight is of course lacking in is ranged weaponry. It's got that survivability with the Iron Shield, but it needs to get in close, either 18 inches for the firing of the lance, or actually in melee range. And that's the same for all of the Cerastus knights really. They need to get in close to do the most damage. They're going to be vulnerable from long range weaponry, especially if your opponent has a Porphyrion or a Warhound Titan or something like that, that can just sit back and fire turbo lasers or volcano cannons or whatever, or Magna Las cannons even, quite scary things. But that's all I've wanted to say about the Cerastus Knight Lancer. I think I've talked a lot about it. What do you guys think of the unit? What do you guys think of the model? Please do put your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. It'd be great to hear from you. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you for watching. The Emperor Protects.